North American indigenous traditions. If the Andes put the underworld under the soil and the Aztecs walked the long northward roads, North American indigenous traditions place thresholds in places of meeting, riverbands, trail crossings, mounds, and teepee doors, and make passage a practiced relation between people, place, and animal kin. Gates and thresholds, riverbands, mounds, and the doorway of song. There is a humility to these thresholds. They do not grandstand. They are bent in a river, a single blue stone, the low overhang of a limestone ledge. A particular mound whose name your grandmother would whisper and then look at you as if you had asked whether the moon ought to be polite. In North American indigenous worlds, thresholds are local first, particular places with pedigrees, gossip, and memory. And that particularity is their power. You do not step into spiritland from anywhere. You step in from somewhere everyone knows. Think of the riverband that holds the current just so, where fish gather and the water seems to slow as if listening. And that band becomes a doorway because people have met there before. Hunters, mourners, infants named beside the bank. And the water keeps the records. A painted tippy door is not decoration but an announcement. Cross here and be ready to be seen differently. A medicine lodge, sanctified for a night, converts ordinary air into a finely tuned aperture. A mound with a catch, at its heart, is not only an archaeological curiosity, it is a named address for certain kinds of speech with what lies beneath. Material markers catalog these thresholds, offerings tucked into rock crevices, eagle feather bundles left at a ford, small caches beneath stones. And these are not anonymous acts of piety, but public receipts. They say, in plain social language, someone passed this way, did their part, and here is the evidence. Painted doors and tied tobacco are both signal and contract. TV flowers become liminal curtains. Painted symbols call particular spirits or ancestors and instruct them how to behave if they decide to show themselves. The objects are the shorthand of a long conversation between people and place. Social thresholds are as important as topography. Vision quest sites, remote ridges, solitary buttes, isolated islands are places where one goes deliberately to be altered. Sweat lodges and medicine lodges are scheduled sacraments, temporary consecration of a place in order to change a person. A haunted clearing becomes sacred for a season, sanctified so the next hunt might be generous. Puberty rites, fast and seasonal migrations are practical technologies of liminality. They convert ordinary life into thresholds. You can enter and emerge from differently. These are not theoretical affections. They are repeatable methods for teaching bodies and communities how to cross. Dreams matter here as practical elements. The same band where an elder's offering sits is often a place a young person receives a song or a vision during sleep. What happened at night and what is done at the river bank are part of the same grammar. A dream remembered and told aloud at the right place binds the world together. Dream, place, and song forming a single instruction on how to meet the other worlds. Seasonal migration and the work of tending camps are likewise ritualized. Crossing a tree line, sleeping at a named knoll, calling the name of a hill before breaking camp. Each small act marks the map with human attention. Locality breeds responsibility. When a place is named as a doorway, it acquires stewards. Elders who know the songs, hunters who know the etiquette, keepers who ensure the offerings are correct. The songs sung at a vision quest are not public domain. They are held by people who have been entrusted with their tone and words. And that custodianship is a form of social governance, a way a community regulates when they cross and under what conditions, and how the crossing is to be acknowledged afterwards. There is ritual technology in the ordinary, painting a doorway, tying a feather, moving a stone pile, casting before lodge, or bringing a kettle of both to a cane. These gestures look domestic because they are domestic. They are the small, repeated acts that convert the landscape into a moral geography. A river ford marked by eagle feathers is a map and a contact. Cross here with care, leave tobacco, say the name, and the place will hold you as it holds the memory of those who came before. Above all, these thresholds teach a practice of attention. The world thins where people pay heed. Where names are spoken, where offerings are kept, where songs are remembered and sung. The lesson is not abstract. Know the place, keep the etiquette, honor the local memory, and you can step across without being uprooted. Fail in those small obligations, and the place will, in its own way, remind you that thresholds are not neutral. They are social things, stitched into kinship, story, and labor. And they expect the same courtesy you show a visiting relative. So, when you speak of riverbends, mounds, and the doorway of song, remember, it is not geography alone that makes a threshold. It is human care, names, offerings, songs, and guardianship that hold the seam open. These are places with local passports, particular, remembered, and kept by people who know how to call them. Step lightly, sing the name, leave the tobacco, and the doorway will answer. Transit and Psychopomps, vision quests, animal kin, and the hand that guides. A vision quest is, bluntly, a very old way of getting lost on purpose, and then hoping something kind and useful finds you. It is an intentional unmooring. An individual steps out of ordinary life into a framed isolation. A ridge, an island, a high rock, or a lonely ridge top, and waits. The world narrows to hunger, weather, silence, and a single human hurt. In that concentrated space, something usually answers. That answer is rarely abstract philosophy. It arises as an animal, a song, an image, or a chance to do one particular thing differently. In short, the quest produces instruction, and the instruction often comes dressed as creature company. The outward shape is familiar across many nations. Preparation, fasting, prayer, sweat, withdrawal to a named place reserved for the work, a period of solitude, and then return with whatever came. But the real work is not the silence alone. It is the attentive waiting for a relationship to announce itself. Vision quest experiences are often described as meeting a helper or animal kin. Eagle, bear, wolf, coyote, raven, or other sentient presences that appear in dreams, in walking vision, or at the thin edge between both. These animals are not merely mascots, they are teachers with temper, preferences, and tasks. An eagle might give sight, a bear, grounding and medicine, a coyote, lessons in cunning and boundaries. Different places and people have different favorite kin, but the pattern is the same. The animal arrives, offers a portfolio of gifts, and then expects convenience. Crucially, the quest is seldom an entirely private affair. The handed guides, elders, medicine people, ceremonial leaders frames the journey. They set the place, name the rules, and later interpret what was received. This is not gatekeeping for its own sake. It is public stewardship. The elder's role is to provide ritual safety, technical language, and cultural grammar, so that an image does not become a private mania, but a shared resource. When a young person returns saying, "An altar spoke the name of my father," the community uses the elder's vocabulary and precedents to translate that report into a role, a song, a duty, or sometimes a warning. The animal kin encountered functions like a psychopomp in miniature. They orient a person's life direction and often act as mediators between social need and personal vocation. A hunter who returns with a moose helper may find that their tracking skills are sharper and their responsibility for the herd intensifies. A young woman given a song by the spirit of a river may become a keeper of water prayers. The relationship is contractual. The human learns, composes a song, or a practice, and in many cases offers regular thanks, tobacco, food to know that the band where the vision occurred, or a newly seen feather placed in a tippy door. These are the receipts and ledgers of a convenant. Sound and song matter. A vision frequently hands back a melody or set of words, a seed of social technology that can be performed in ceremony and taught to others. That song is the proof and the map. When a person sings it in public, elders recognize the cadence and confirm the encounter. The melody may instruct, go to this place, care for that child, hold a pipe for a visiting elder. The public recital transforms a private experience into communal obligation and supply. The hand that guides is also practical, in the worst way. Elders teach how to stay alive while you are gone. They instruct on where to shelter, how to avoid poison plants, how to keep weather from overwhelming young bodies. The ceremonial leader ensures the rites limits, how long the invitation lasts, what to bring back as evidence, and what obligations follow. This stewardship protects both the quester and the community. It makes the vision legible and prevents the descent into something dangerous or self-isolating. Psychopomps in this context are not only animal kin, but also ancestors and spirit helpers who show the way. Sometimes the helper is explicitly an ancestor, a grandparent's face on a rock, or a dream voice that recites the old name. That ancestral guidance ties personal vocation back to family lines and communal responsibilities. The mentor elder then helps translate the ancestors' counsel into tasks that the living can perform. Offerings, naming acts, or changes in a resource use. This is how personal vision gets grafted onto social life. Now, there is also a moral architecture at play. Vision quests are not simply self-help with feathers. They are mechanisms for social placement. The gifts received often come with obligations. Stewardship of a place, enactment of a healing practice, or the duty to teach. In this way, the quest supplies competent people to the community. Hunters who track it differently, healers who know a new song, or mediators who can read the world's thin edges. The community thus invests in the rite because it produces people who carry knowledge and responsibility forwards. Ethical practice matters. The guide elders translate the encounter, and here is the practical bit. The person manage what they have been given. Not every vision is welcome. Some are warnings of danger or calls to repair relationships. Proper counseling prevents grandiose claims and ensures that the person returns with a powerful charge, has the support to enact it responsibly. The collective stance, recognition, training, ritual enactment, keeps the vision from becoming a solitary burden and turns it into a public asset. And finally, the quest's return is theatrical and ordinary at once. The person who was absent comes back with a new gate, a new song, sometimes a new name. The community listens, tests the song, attaches obligations, and, if the encounter is authorized, assigns tasks. The vision then becomes part of the living archive. Songs told at lodges, offerings made at riverbends, names woven into the medicine bundle. The animal kin continues as a presence in that person's life. Not a pet, but a colleague with expectations. So, vision quests make people and knowledge at once. The animal kin teach, the elders guide, the songs certify, and the community receives the resulting skill into circulation. If the quest is done well, the person returns with a practical toolkit, a melody, a duty, a stewardship. It benefits the whole group. If it goes badly, it becomes a private trouble. That is why the hand that guides matters as much as the animal that speaks. Together they convert a solitary encounter into a social resource. And in that conversation, the living and the spirit lands remain in conversation and conversion. Court and inhabitants, ancestors, animals, the trickster, and the council of spirits. The spirit world in many North American indigenous cosmologies looks less like a courtroom and more like a crowded, opinionated village council. Ancestors in a front row, animal kin at the table, river people whispering in a corner, and one trickster tapping a spoon against the bowl just to see who notices. It is an ecology of people, named elders who persist, animals who teach, elements who claim place, and tricksters whose job description is unsettle complacency. Together, they advise, test, and occasionally educate communal concerns. But always as local, relational actors, rather than abstract metaphysical forces. Ancestors are first among people. They are not vague shades, but named elders, grandparents, clan forebears, and memorial presences who are fed, sung to, and consulted. A remembered grandmother's song, an elder's story about where to plant, or the recitation of a clan name at a feast are all ways of calling those ancestors into council. They speak with memory and obligation. The council carries land rights, family stories, seasonal know-how, and the weight of precedents. To consult an ancestor is to request the living's own history to be marshaled as evidence, and that evidence tends to be very specific. You plant here in late frost because your great-grandfather once saved seed here. Animal and elemental people are the specialists, a community's dominant animal kin: eagle, bear, moose, wolf, seaman. Arise with particular portfolios: sight for hunters, steadiness for teachers, migration knowledge for fishers. Elemental beings, river spirits, stone keepers, wind voices, hold localized claims and expectations. Thunderbird and water panda motifs, for example, articulate sky and water partnerships in regions where storm and river shape survival. And they insist on particular etiquettes around fishing, canoeing, or calling a storm. These beings are not interchangeable. One rock spirit will not accept the same tobacco offering as the next Wally stone. Place names and histories govern who speaks for what. The trickster is essential theatre, an essential pedagogy. Coyote, Raven, Nanaboso, and their analogues perform the uncomfortable work of teaching through embarrassment and inversion. They unsettle certainties, reveal hidden truths, and insist that cleverness, not blind obedience, be cultivated. You do not invite a trickster to smooth things over. You tolerate them because their mischief tests whether a community has the reflexes to notice error and correct course. They are, in short, the formal social critique that arise in fur or feathers. Now, spirit courts are inherently local and relational. Authority is not abstracted into a universal magistrate. It is enacted through place knowledge and lineage. One river's water woman may educate disputes about fish-taking. Another valley's stonekeeper will insist on particular memorial practices for mound burials. Who gets to speak in a council is determined by the sense, by who has stewarded the place, and by ritual competence. Elders, ceremonial leaders, and those with named relationships to particular spirits hold the protocols for calling, hearing, and recording spirit council. The community's memory, songs, names, mapped counts, functions as the docket. Mechanically, the council works through offerings, stories, and embodied testimony. A family lays tobacco at a bend and sings the elder's song. That action is both petition and proof that obligations have been met. An animal dream recited in a lodge becomes evidence that a particular helperkin has been contacted. Tricksters' interjections are noted and treated like inconvenient but useful audits flags. Decisions are rarely abstract degrees. They are enacted remedies. Who replants a grove, who makes the apology, who shares meat at the next feast. The spiritual council's judgment looks like restitution, regift, or the transfer of responsibility. Practical acts that rewave relations. There is an ethics embedded in this ecology. Relationships with spirits are reciprocal and documented by performance. Songs learned, offerings kept, and duties fulfilled. Failure to honor a river or a mound shows up quickly in communal life. Fewer fish, hunting misfortune, or spirit silence. And the remedy is ritual repair, an offering, a public apology, a reburial, or a feast that rebalances obligations. Conversely, well-tended relationships produce practical dividends. Successful hunts, reliable springs, sound counseling from ancestors. The spirit code thus functions as an informal governance, distributed, performative, and accountable through observable outcomes. And finally, the plurality of the cause protects diversity of knowledge, because authority is place and lineage specific. Communities sustain a plurality of specialists and stories. Different valleys keep different songs, different elders remember different lines, and different animals can carry distinct ecological intelligence. That diversity is the social technology that lets people respond adaptively to landscape variation. The right person will know the right place, the right time, and the right offering. In short, the Council of Spirits is a living local polity. Ancestors who remember, animals who teach, elements who claim, and tricksters who test. Its judgments are not abstract verdicts, but enacted corrections, offering songs, feasts, and repaired relations that keep people, place, and spirit in working conversation. Judgment, reward, and cultural function, restoration, reciprocity, and social repair. Judgment here is less gavel and more potluck with rules. An occasion where remedies are enacted, obligations repaid, and the ledger of social life is set right with food, song, and public witness. When the world goes wrong, illness or failed hunt, a sudden drought, the response is reparative and practical. Rites that restore balance, ancestors who step in to help, and communal ceremonies that redistribute what's needed so everyone can breathe again. Think of illness not as an individual failing, but as a slackened knot in a web of relations. The cure, therefore, is relational. Offerings to the offended spirit, a carefully staged apology, the re-performance of a song the spirit recognizes, and a public act that shows the community has repaired its side of the bargain. The ritual is literal bookkeeping made theatrical. Cigarettes, tobacco, fish or boiled corn left at a bench. A song sung in the right cadence, a named elder invoked, all functioning as proof that the contract has been honored. When the knot is tied anew, the child's fever fades, the hunter's mark returns, and gossip turns from accusation to relief. Restorative ethics are pragmatic. If a quarrel, theft, or breach of taboo is suspected of causing misfortune, the remedy is visible and communal. Offerings, apologies performed publicly, and reparative acts that recalibrate relationships. The remedy's value is not measured by legal precedents, but by observable outcomes. Does the sermon return? Does the clan speak to one another again? If yes, the ritual worked. If not, the community repeats the performance or ups the ante until the balance is restored. It's like maintenance work on a social bridge, not glamorous, but essential. Resource and memory management are folded into ceremonial life. Harvest ceremonies, seasonal rites, and funerary redistributions are both ecological stewardship and social insurance. A communal feast after a successful hunt is not a mere celebration, it redistributes protein, acknowledges stats, and reinforces the rules that regulated the hunt in the first place. Potlatches and memorial gatherings function similarly. They publicly allocate resources, honor obligations to kin, and refresh the social memory that tells everyone who is owed what and who has delivered. And these acts keep resources flowing and memory alive. A kind of local economy with its own auditors and receipts in the form of songs and gifts. Public pedagogy is everywhere. Memorials, storytelling, and ceremony are how practical knowledge and obligations are passed to the next generation. A child learns the route to a river, not from a map, but from a story about an ancestor who once followed the current and called the name of the bends. A youngster learns how to feed spirits by watching an elder set tobacco in the right hand or reciting the clan song. Songs are instruction manuals, stories contain travel advice, etiquette, and a catalogue of do's and don'ts. Ceremony is schooling that sticks. It teaches how to travel, how to feed spirit, and how to repair a breach, all in a single evening's performance. Feast and redistributor ceremonies perform political work as well. By making obligations public, they make leadership accountable. Who sponsors a feast, who gives away what, and who remembers an elder's debt all signal social standing and responsibility. Potlatch-type displays are not vanity projects. They are institutional mechanisms for reallocation, for making sure that wealth and food are dispersed to those who need it, and for reaffirming alliances. In times of crisis, these networks mobilize rapidly, directing relief through kinship and ceremonial channels that are often faster and more reliable than distant bureaucracies. There is also a justice that is procedural and visible. When harm is traced to a neglect or transgression, the community prescribes performative remedies. Reburials, public apologies, or a renewed offering schedule. The work is not privatized, it is conducted with witnesses, songs, and receipts. A drama whose outcome is measured by the resumption of communal rhythms. The spirit judgment is thus reparative. Restore what was broken, give what was withheld, and the community's equilibrium follows. All of this rests on accountability by effect. Rituals are validated when they change conditions. When children recover, when semen run returns, when winter stores are sufficient. That feedback loop is the governance mechanism. Ritual proposals are tried, observed, and either accepted as part of local policy or revised. Authority accrues to those whose ritual demonstrably produce good outcomes, not merely to those who declaim the loudest. It is governance by observable consequence, an empirical theology, if you will, where proof is a fuller granary. And finally, there is tenderness in the machinery. Ceremonies we wave ties not only to keep resources flowing, but to keep people feeling like they matter. Named ancestors spoken for, debts are shown as paid, and children learn that repair is possible. Rituals teach that misfortune is not a final verdict, but a condition to be acted upon, publicly, craftily, and with neighbors and hands. In that way, judgment is both remedial and pedagogical. It restores what was lost and teaches everyone how to keep it from happening again. So, Ukko, Xibalba, Mictlan, or the U may be former systems. North American indigenous afterlives are intensely local, enacted by named places, animal companions, and the continuing work of memory. A geography of obligation, a song, offering, and self-repair keep the paths clear.